The story begins with Joel waking up in his bed, comfortable and at ease until he steps outside and notices that his car is damaged on one side. He assumes it's his neighbor's fault, so he quickly writes a note and leaves it, thinking it might help resolve the situation. Afterward, he gets into his car and drives away, feeling a little unsettled by the incident. The next scene takes place at a train station, where a voiceover announces, "Random thoughts, prevalent thoughts. Day 2004. Suddenly, Joel appears rushing for the train, running with urgency as if he's trying to catch something important. Barely making it, he leaps onto the train just in time, catching his breath. Inside the train, Joel finds himself lost in thought. His mind drifts to the recent damage to his car, wondering how he'll manage to fix it. As he ponders over this problem, his thoughts shift, and the next thing we know, he's standing at a payphone, calling in sick to work. Deciding to take a day off, he heads to the beach, where he spends time writing in his diary and skipping stones across the water. While relaxing by the shore, he spots a woman in the distance. He imagines what it would be like to meet someone new, but doubts fill his mind. He's not very confident when it comes to approaching women, and he struggles to make eye contact. These thoughts lead him to consider whether he should get back together with his ex-girlfriend, Naomi. Later, Joel enters a small diner to grab a bite to eat and, to his surprise, sees the same woman he noticed earlier at the beach. He finds himself unable to stop staring at her, wondering why he always seems to develop feelings for any woman who shows him a little bit of attention. The woman, named Clementine, approaches Joel, sparking a conversation with some playful flirting, which catches him off guard. Joel feels uncomfortable but intrigued. Clementine mentions that she remembers him from when he worked at Barnes & Noble, though Joel doesn't recall ever meeting her before. They share a brief, light-hearted chat, and she playfully punches him on the arm before walking away. When they both get off the train at the same stop, Joel, feeling bold, offers Clementine a ride home. Surprisingly, she accepts his offer, and this unexpected encounter turns into what feels like a spontaneous date. As they spend more time together, Clementine surprises Joel by mentioning that she wants to marry him, even though they've only just met. She enthusiastically suggests they go on a real date soon. While Joel is intrigued by her energy, he also feels a bit overwhelmed, so he decides to leave. Before he goes, though, Clementine gives him her number, asking him to call her. That very night, Joel can't help but dial her number as soon as he gets home. The next day, they meet up again for a second date, but this time, it's something a little riskier: ice skating. Though Joel isn't entirely comfortable with the idea, he enjoys spending time with Clementine, and their time on the ice brings them closer. After skating, they drive back to Clementine's place, but she asks Joel if they can stop by his house first so she can grab her toothbrush. While she's inside getting it, a strange man approaches Joel's car, leading to a tense and awkward conversation. Afterward, Joel is left confused, and as he sits in his car, he begins to cry. Feeling overwhelmed by everything that has happened, he throws something out of the car window, heads home, changes into his pajamas, and takes a pill to calm down. The next day, Joel notices a van parked outside his house with some men sitting inside, waiting. He feels uneasy, so he quickly turns off the lights, trying to hide. Later, he shares his frustrations with his friends, Rob and Carrie, explaining that he and Clementine had a fight. Joel decides to visit her workplace to make amends, bringing her a Valentine's Day gift. However, when he gets there, Clementine acts like she doesn't know him, and to Joel's shock, she's with another man. Heartbroken, Joel confides in Rob, who tells him the devastating news. Clementine has undergone a procedure to erase all memories of him. Unable to cope with this revelation, Joel decides to undergo the same memory-erasing procedure. He tracks down the clinic where Clementine had the procedure done and meets Howard, the head technician. Howard explains that Clementine was unhappy with their relationship and chose to erase Joel from her life. Joel, devastated, agrees to have his own memories of her erased as well. Howard instructs him to gather all the items that remind him of Clementine, photos, gifts, and mementos, and bring them in for the procedure. Joel hastily collects everything related to Clementine. Before the procedure begins, Joel is asked to recount how he first met Clementine. Interestingly, his memory of their meeting is different from what we've seen earlier. He recalls meeting her at a beach party while he was still in a relationship with Naomi, which adds a layer of complexity to his emotions. The procedure begins, and chaos ensues as Joel's memories jump back and forth. He remembers an argument with Clementine after she came home late one night and admitted to damaging his car. In anger, Joel says hurtful things, which pushes Clementine further away. As the technicians work to erase Joel's memories, we learn more about Patrick, one of the assistants helping with the procedure. Patrick reveals that he met Clementine while erasing her memories of Joel and became infatuated with her, even stealing personal items like her underwear. His actions disturb Stan, another technician, and highlight just how strange the situation has become. As the erasure continues, the technician's conversation begins to blend with Joel's memories, adding to his confusion. He relives another argument with Clementine, this time about her desire to have a baby, which Joel believes she isn't ready for. The argument escalates, spilling out into the street as they both shout at each other. While all this happens in Joel's mind, Mary, Stan's girlfriend, and the clinic's secretary, arrives at Joel's house to join the procedure. She and Stan share drinks and jokes while the memory erasure progresses. As Joel's memories jumble and overlap, he becomes increasingly distressed. In one of his memories, he overhears Patrick talking to Clementine on the phone, and Joel tries to see who this mysterious man is, but he can't make out his face. Clementine, unaware of the full situation, invites Patrick over, and Stan gives him permission to leave. Stan and Mary sit at the foot of Joel's bed, sharing snacks and talking. Mary brings up Howard, their boss, which seems to bother Stan. Meanwhile, Patrick arrives at Clementine's house, where she is having an emotional breakdown. She asks him to leave town with her immediately, so Patrick calls Stan to let him know he won't be returning that night. At this point, Patrick pulls out Clementine's old journal, which she had submitted to help with erasing her memories of Joel. Using the journal, Patrick manipulates Clementine's emotions, trying to win her over by pretending to understand her deeply. Back in Joel's mind, he experiences more happy memories with Clementine, like their time ice skating and the deep conversations they had. He desperately wishes to hold on to these moments, but knows he can't. He fights to stop the erasure, screaming in his mind, but in the real world, he remains silent as Stan and Mary continue their work. Joel fights hard to wake up from the procedure and, for a moment, seems to succeed. However, he quickly falls back into his memories with Clementine. She suggests they hide her in a memory where she doesn't belong so that the technicians won't be able to find and erase her. Joel takes her to a childhood memory, and this strategy seems to work. The erasure process pauses, and Joel disappears from the technician's tracking map. Stan begins to panic, unsure of what to do. Mary urges him to call Howard for help, and though Stan hesitates, he eventually makes the call. Howard rushes over, leaving his wife worried about his sudden departure. Meanwhile, Joel tells Clementine about Patrick using his memories to get close to her. As this conversation unfolds, we see glimpses of Clementine and Patrick in real life, with her still feeling distressed. Howard arrives at Joel's apartment and quickly assesses the situation. He tries to erase the hidden childhood memory, causing Joel to momentarily choke and wake up. Howard administers an injection, sending Joel back into unconsciousness. The erasure process continues to encounter difficulties. Stan notices that Joel is now in a memory that should have already been erased. Clementine suggests they hide her in a particularly embarrassing memory of Joel, and he agrees. They retreat to a moment when his mother caught him in a compromising situation, followed by another memory of Joel being bullied as a child. These deeply personal and humiliating memories throw Howard and Stan off track. Frustrated, Stan steps outside to get some air, leaving Mary alone with Howard. Taking advantage of the situation, Mary flirts with Howard, and they share an intimate moment. From outside, Stan watches but seems resigned to whatever is happening. Suddenly, Howard's wife arrives, and Stan tries to warn them by honking, but it's too late. She has already seen everything. Howard chases after her as she drives away, with Mary joining in, begging for forgiveness. Howard's wife tells Mary that she can have him and urges Howard to reveal the truth. The truth is that Howard and Mary had an affair in the past, and afterward, Howard erased her memory of it. He claims that Mary wanted the procedure, but this revelation leaves her devastated. Howard insists that Mary had asked for the procedure herself, but this claim does little to ease the situation. As this truth comes to light, Joel is seen within his fading memories, attempting to ask Clementine out on a date. However, the scene only plays out in his mind, a memory that is being erased as he reflects on it. Mary, filled with anger and betrayal, heads back to the office and stumbles upon a tape recording of her pre-procedure account, the session she had before her memories were wiped wiped. As she listens to the tape, the painful realization of what she has lost overwhelms her, and she breaks down emotionally. Meanwhile, the narrative shifts back to Joel, bringing us to the pivotal moment when he first encountered Clementine at a beach party. She had approached him while he was sitting by himself, and the two had spent the entire day together, sharing a natural and spontaneous connection. Later that evening, Clementine impulsively breaks into an empty house by the beach, and Joel, hesitant at first, eventually follows her inside. They spend a brief time together in the house, but when Clementine goes upstairs, Joel makes the rash decision to leave. After leaving, Joel is struck with immediate regret, realizing that fear has driven him away. As this final memory of Clementine begins to fade into oblivion, she whispers to him to meet her in Montauk, a suggestion that subtly echoes through his mind as his memories shift and unravel. The scene shifts to the morning after the memory erasure. Howard, the lead technician, shuts his laptop, signaling the end of the procedure, and says simply, "Okay." The memory wiping process is finally complete. Stan and Howard quietly exit the room, leaving Joel to gradually awaken. Upon waking, Joel heads to his car, where he once again notices the dent on its side, the same scene that opened the story. Joel, still in disbelief, assumes his neighbor is to blame for the damage. Simultaneously, the story follows Stan as he desperately chases after Mary, who has packed her belongings from the office and is preparing to leave for good. Stan, clearly upset, pleads with her, trying to explain that he wasn't aware of the full extent of the issues between them. As this happens, the story rewinds to the earlier moment when Joel rushed to catch his train, and we are taken back to the point in time when everything began to feel disorienting. When Joel had driven Clementine home after one of their dates. In a flashback, Clementine goes upstairs to retrieve her toothbrush. When she returns to the car, she has some mail with her, including a tape sent by Mary. The tape contains records of the patients who had undergone memory erasure at Howard's clinic, including Clementine's. As they listen to the tape in the car, Clementine's voice can be heard saying hurtful things about Joel, which deeply affects him. Hurt and confused by what he hears, Joel angrily stops the car and tells Clementine to get out, believing she is playing a cruel prank on him. At this point, he has no idea that Clementine is just as confused and bewildered as he is, having no recollection of saying those things. Clementine, feeling emotionally raw and rejected, gets out of the car and walks home. When she arrives, she finds Patrick waiting for her, but in her distress, she angrily tells him to stay away from her. She retreats to her garage, where she breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by everything that has happened. After some time alone, Clementine gathers herself and decides to head to Joel's house. It's clear that she's struggling to recall where exactly Joel lives, which makes sense given that her memories of him have been erased. When she eventually arrives at Joel's home, she finds him listening to his own tape, the recording of his memories from the clinic. Upon seeing her, Joel immediately apologizes for yelling at her earlier in the car. Clementine, in turn, apologizes for the cruel things she had said about him on her tape. They both acknowledge that they've heard hurtful things about each other, and while this creates an uncomfortable atmosphere, it also opens up a path for honesty. Clementine, still feeling uneasy, decides to leave. Joel follows her into the hallway, and they both realize they want to start fresh despite the hurtful things they have heard. They acknowledge that they may face the same challenges again in the future, but they are willing to try. The story ends with Joel and Clementine deciding to begin anew, leaving us with a sense of hope that they can overcome their past difficulties together.